What is up, everyone? This is Adam with the Lavin Real Estate Group and Next Home Synergy. And I'm here today to talk to you about a question that a lot of people have that they think it's a simple answer, and it's actually a super complicated answer to a very easy question. And that is, why are there no houses to buy? So the first thing to understand past the root cause of this is that what the media is reporting as an inventory issue actually isn't an inventory issue. So they are reporting that there's a historically low inventory rate, which there is. We've never ever seen inventory so low. That being said, houses are still selling every single day. So what's driving this low inventory number is the fact that homes are selling at a record rate. So we actually have a higher than normal volume of houses being sold still. It's not at the height of what 2020 and 2021 was, and a lot of what is driving that we'll get into. That being said, the volume is still there, and we kind of talk about this every single week on market updates, but in the first half and going into the second quarter of 2022, there's not a inventory problem per se. It's just that inventory is selling at a rapid rate, faster than the market can keep up with the number of buyers that want to enter the market. Now that is where we'll get into the real root cause of all of this, for what is a perceived problem. And there's three issues. So the number one issue is what has been a decade-long problem now, actually a little bit longer than a decade. And some people are blaming it on COVID, but it's really not a COVID thing. The inventory issue has gone back for over a decade because builders haven't been building at the rate that they were in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s. They kind of stopped after the market crash of like 2006 through 2010 because they were building houses and they were just sitting there. There were half houses built. Builders were sitting on lumber that was being unused because there wasn't money coming in from the houses that they already built. It was a pretty crazy scenario, and you almost couldn't give the new house away at one point. Came with a whole slew of other issues. We won't get into that, but that's where the problem started. Along the way, when COVID happened and interest rates dropped low, all of a sudden everybody raised their hand on twofold because one, money became almost free. So you had a lot of buyers that now qualified for more money that wanted to buy a house. Number two, you had people that were owners of houses getting more equity so quickly that they had never experienced before, that they wanted to sell their house and now buy a bigger house. So that caused an issue of, okay, there wasn't any houses being built. Now we have a massive amount of people coming onto the market. You would think the solution is, let's just build more houses. Trust me, they want to. But there's a whole slew of issues that comes along with let's just build more houses. Number one is supply chain issues. So twofold with that. So supply chain issues, because a lot of things come from China and from overseas. The little pieces of what makes a house work, a lot of it comes from China and overseas. So with the shutdowns that have gone out in China and other countries, wars going on overseas, that's kind of put not necessarily a complete stop, but a giant lag time in products getting over here. On top of all that, there's been a labor increase and labor shortage. So there's been a cost in dollar per laborer that has increased greatly. So it's costing builders more money to build a house. And then on top of that, there's a shortage in skilled labor in this country right now for a multitude of reasons. But regardless, they can't find people to build a house. Now, the other thing that's driving all this is that if you've gone to Home Depot or Lowe's or the local lumber yard, commodities have gone up to historic highs, particularly in the components of a house. So for, again, a multitude of reasons, COVID, the mills shutting down, lack of laborers, insect infestations, forest fires, and wildfires. All of that has contributed to a lack of lumber, a shortage in lumber, and usable lumber to build houses, and it's killed the supply chain and truckers. So you name it, every single part of the issue, every single part of the way, there's been a roadblock essentially. So even if you find a builder that has a team of builders and workers for them that want to build a house, and they are able to price it appropriately, and they have buyers that want to buy the house, at some point they can't even get the materials to build the house. That has caused another issue along the way with the rising interest rates of people that bought at the max of their budget months ago, and now when they're going to settlement, they're not qualifying for the loan anymore. So whole kind of craziness going on with there. But that's pillar number one. Pillar number two is that there is a meeting of worlds right now. So we have millennials entering the market at is what would be considered the peak of that group purchasing homes. They're hitting the age where either they're single and they have expendable income and they've been in their job long enough, great debt to income ratio, their school loans are almost paid off, they kind of have it together and they're ready to enter the market and purchase a house. Or they have dual incomes and they're married and they have kids and they need to purchase a house. That group is at the peak of, hey, we're all ready to buy a house, and they're all entering the market right now, or have been, and they will be until about 2026, 2027. So there's that. That is meeting with baby boomers who are not selling houses, to the point of we've never seen it before. So baby boomers, there's a whole bunch of things going on. One, they're not selling houses. What are they doing with the houses? In prior life cycles that we've watched in the history of the country, is people get a starter house, then they get the bigger house, they have the kids go to college, we move to Florida to a smaller house, downsize, whatever, but the house gets sold. That has stopped happening. For whatever reason, that's just stopped happening. Baby boomers have been holding on to houses longer. They've been staying in the workforce longer than what has happened in the past. You have dual incomes coming in so that they can support purchasing a second home after their first one is almost paid off or already paid off. And so you have them owning second homes. You have them renting out their house to their kids. So now, that house just isn't up for sale. You have them becoming landlords by mistake, essentially, and them realizing that, right now, real estate is just about the safest and best short-term and long-term cash-flowing investment that you can make. And so there is a massive meeting in the worlds with everybody in between, where, we want to sell houses, we want to buy houses, and there's just this holdup. And beyond that, even though some of these people are at that cycle where it's like, this isn't even convenient for us to have this giant house and take care of it and pay all the bills that go along with it, it would make more sense to downsize for those people, because the market has risen so much and home values have gone up so much, and the market is so crazy right now in terms of attempting to purchase a home. Even though they have the money to do it, it almost doesn't make sense, because in some scenarios, they're taking all of that equity that they've gained in their house, in their bigger house, and they would be using it all to purchase a smaller house. So why use all of our money to buy essentially a smaller house? Some people look at the convenience factor of it. They have to sell. And so there's that percentage, but overall, they're not selling because it doesn't make sense on paper. So they're holding, they're buying more, and that's happening. Number three, which is the biggest one that a lot of people aren't aware of, particularly on a local market, is that right now, 33% of the homes in the entire country are owned by investors. Not second homes, they're owned by investors. there's a couple different branches of investors. There's obviously small investors that own less than 10 properties, but they buy a couple rentals in the area and they make enough money to cash flow and live off that in their retirement, and they bought another house every couple of years. That's one type of investor. Certainly not the entire part of that percentage, but it's big enough out there where we'll note it. The next type of investor, that this has been going on for a while and brought in the real issue, but the next big investor that's out there that's taking up a chunk of the market is REITs, which are real estate investment trusts, which is essentially somebody gets a group of people together and pretty much crowdfunds money, and you have to have a certain income level or certain expertise in the field in order to invest in it. Sometimes you don't, and there's a lower entry fee to it, and there's a little bit more stipulation around that. However, what that's doing is it has been before COVID happened, it has been for years now, bringing in overseas money, and they're investing money, buying up houses, buying up multifamily houses, buying up apartment complexes, essentially flipping them, and then they either take the income off of it, and then they give out a percentage of that to the person that runs the fund and did all the work, and then a smaller percentage to the people that funded it based on the amount that they invest. And that model and the success of that model and guaranteed cash flow of that model has inspired hedge funds and mutual funds in Wall Street. And that's where the real problem comes in, because we now have companies, hedge fund managers, mutual fund managers that are in control of legitimately hundreds of billions of dollars. And what they're doing is realizing that, hey, the stock market fluctuates, the real estate market, even if the value fluctuates, it still creates cash flow. So they are coming in and they're completely unregulated to what they can and can't do. They're totally legally able to come in and purchase all of this property, and they are purchasing it at an exponential rate because they have pockets deeper than anybody can ever go. They have hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're coming in and buying up residential real estate or residential style real estate above market value, above appraised value, to the tune of tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, pricing out the normal buyer, and then renting it back, because they can buy a $400,000 house and spend $500,000 or $600,000 on it, write the entire thing off more or less and depreciate it over time as a business expense, and then rent that back to people and take all of that rent and rent it at an exponential rate, where they're essentially almost doubling their money. And because the inventory is so low and there's nowhere to go, people are paying the prices to rent. There are scenarios in Delaware County and Chester County where we all live, where the rent on a 3-bedroom house that should be $400,000 or $500,000 is equivalent to carrying $1 million plus mortgage. It's crazy. It may not be fair, but it's the reality of what is causing all this. Right now, there are questions as it's becoming an evident issue and noticeable in all markets across the country with Congress and Senate as, do we do anything about it? There is a huge battle going on that's bubbling up between the banks and these Wall Street investors, because the banks are now losing money because they can't write mortgages and can't give away mortgages because these giant funds are coming in and sweeping everything up for cash, and that's taking away cash flow from the banks. So it's a pretty interesting thing that's going on. So it's not creating a housing bubble by any means, but it is probably, over time, if it's allowed to continue unregulated, going to create a market issue in the financial market overall. So it's pretty crazy what's going on. But the issue is, bigger than, hey, there's an inventory problem, and sometimes I'm sure you talk to some of your other local real estate agents and it's like, well, how's the market? And oh my God, it's crazy, everything's selling like hotcakes. Like, yeah, it is, but there's, issues that go behind it that are causing all of this, and it's going to continue to go on for several years. If you have questions about this, if you worry about it, if you're wondering, what do I do? My overall advice is, quite frankly, right now is the best time to ever own a home. It's insane because you can make more money on the back end at a guaranteed rate at this point, because of what's holding up the market, where it's about the safest investment you could probably make. Does it take a lot to get into the game? Yes. But if you have concerns, I would suggest that you work with an agent that really understands everything. Obviously, it's important to understand the local market, but with this investment being probably the biggest investment you're ever going to make, you really need to understand the global factors and national factors that are coming into this right now that are perpetuating what would be considered issues to some and the greatest time in the world to own a house to others. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you just want to hash it out with me, I love to be able to talk to you. Feel free to call or text me at any time. My number is 610-442-9371. You can email me at the email address below as well. And that is it. Hopefully this kind of gives you an idea as to what's going on other than it's a crazy market. And I greatly appreciate your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.